Hello everybody and welcome back. I'm Jason bringing you today's video. The crazy one that almost made it up onto the couch and then changed her mind is Freya. She will probably make another appearance shortly. And we have another video on autism. As always guys, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. We're going to keep trying to bring you guys as much information as we can on autism. It's almost a criminally understood condition. Most people have very, very wrong ideas on what exactly autism is. Plus, it is the currently fastest growing learning and developmental disability in the United States. Now, that is not because it is becoming more prevalent, it is because we are getting better and better and better at diagnosing it. We are learning more about what it is because it's such a broad spectrum. However, it is also the least funded of all the developmental disabilities. So there definitely needs to be a lot more information out there, and we are hoping to give it to you guys. So today I want to talk about something that is a little bit tougher for a lot of people. The signs of autism in adults. I'm only going to talk about a few of them because, again, this is a very, very broad spectrum. So, there's hundreds of signs and symptoms. No two autistic people are alike. No two autistic people present the same symptoms. And even common symptoms that they may share will present differently and be dealt with differently. So it is very, very difficult. It's extraordinarily difficult as an adult to get diagnosed with autism. Just even attempting to find somebody that will do an evaluation and a diagnosis for an adult is extremely difficult. So again, this is just going to be a few. It's not a be-all, end-all. Presenting one of these symptoms or even two of these symptoms does not mean that you may be on the spectrum. But in their totality, they can be pretty good signs. So the very first one is one of the most common ones, and it's one we talk about a lot on this channel, and it is difficulty with eye contact. Difficulty with eye contact. Now, one of the things that is pretty interesting, we're going to have some videos on this coming up, is there's a lot of commonalities between ADHD and autism, especially in some of the symptoms they present and some of the difficulties that they can cause. This is one of the first ones that can be used to differentiate between the two. People that suffer from ADHD and ADHD only generally don't have problems with eye contact and maintaining eye contact, whereas people with autism have a lot of difficulty with eye contact, and some people with autism, most actually with autism, have a lot of difficulty creating eye contact and enormous difficulty maintaining eye contact. Even knowing that I have that particular issue, it's almost impossible for me to maintain eye contact with anybody, and I generally try and avoid making eye contact. And it can be so subtle if you have made it into adulthood, especially deep into adulthood, and have not been diagnosed with autism. It probably means that you learn to mask it very, very, very early, and in a lot of ways unconsciously. So the difficulty with eye contact, you may not even realize is a difficulty for you because you've masked it so well and have figured out how to hide it, even subconsciously, so you're not even aware that you were doing it. Your ability to scan right past somebody, making the briefest eye contact, then moving on to you. You're saying, oh, I'm just being more aware of my surroundings, and it even looks like to those other people that you may be focusing on other things, and yet what you're actually doing is avoiding eye contact. I work with the public. I work in a very, very public place and work with the public. Just surrounded by random people, all the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of random people all day, every single day, and yet very, very few, if any, would ever notice that I don't make eye contact with them as much as most would, because I'm able to focus in different ways that just looks like I'm just doing my job. I'm scanning around. If somebody is talking to me and they're talking very, very intently, and normally there would be some eye contact, generally I will focus on something over their shoulder behind them, and I'll make sure to do it with a facial expression or an intensity that shows that I'm actually looking inside. There's something I'm looking at. And then since my job deals with the table right in front of me, then after that I will look down and I will start talking about what I'm doing and make it look like I'm focused very very much on the task at hand, while still being able to maintain that conversation. But I'll make it look like I need to concentrate on what I'm doing, even though a lot of times I really don't. And that's just ways of avoiding eye contact. So you may not even realize that you were doing it. And if you're not sure, make eye contact. Next time you have a conversation, not with a friend, although even with friends I don't hold eye contact. Next time you're having a conversation with a stranger or near stranger, see if you can if you can hold eye contact without getting uncomfortable. You may be able to force yourself to do it, but if you're getting uncomfortable and it just doesn't feel right and almost feels almost an anxious thing, then you probably have some difficulty with it. So that's one of the most common signs. Another one that is very, very, very subtle and very, very difficult for people to spot if they've made it into adulthood and have learned to mask is lack of empathy. Lack of empathy. And the thing is, while a lot of people, especially ones that don't know a lot about autism, think that autism and autistic people want to be alone, the opposite is actually true for many autistic people. They very much crave social interaction and want to be around people. But what was that?
I said not all.
That's why I said most. But they're not able to, and they don't know how, or they've learned not to. And so part of that, people will also look at autistic people as lacking in empathy, and many autistic people can empathize very very well, but they don't show it, and they also empathize differently. And yes, there can be a lack of normal empathy, a lack of empathy that other people may feel. Autistic people that do appear to be showing a lack of empathy can have, enormous empathy for, say, animals and pets, while having less for other people. And oftentimes that can actually come down to how almost logical autistic people can be. And if they perceive something that is either something they can't control, something that is not something within their worldview, or something that they just don't understand. And autistic people, their brains just work so very, very differently. They don't understand. They don't understand why something is, say, such a big deal. Then the empathy may not be there. In other times, again, if it's just not within your worldview, your circle. A great example would be, actually, again, for me, when I was a child, a very small child. I think fourth grade, walking to school because I lived on a military post, and I lived very very close to the school, so it was safe. All the children walked to school. It was maybe a mile at most from where I lived to the school. And one year, another child in my class, another 9-10-year-old child, was actually struck by a vehicle and killed. Struck by a vehicle and died. One that wasn't killed on the spot, but struck by a vehicle and died. I actually walked right past that kid. Walked right past. I clearly remember it to this day. Walked right past him. They covered him with a blanket. He was still alive at the time, and I remember him looking at me, looking at everybody, and trying to speak. And people were stopping. People were asking questions. Everybody but me. I looked, glanced, and turned and kept walking. Had no impact on me whatsoever. I didn't know the kid. He was in my class. I vaguely knew him. He wasn't a friend of mine. wasn't part of my circle. So school was important. I knew I had to be at school. I had to be at school at a certain time. That's the rule. So I just kept going. And that, that's a great example of just showing a lack of empathy, whether or not we even realize it. Another issue that adults with autism may have is difficulty with back and forth conversations. And that can present a couple of different ways. This also can occur over the phone, with telephonic communication. The first thing that that can be an issue, that can cause this issue, is not understanding, not being able to understand the flow of conversation and the breaks in conversation. So autistic people may not always understand when it's their turn to talk, when it's not their turn to talk, when an answer is expected from them, or when it's time to say something, especially because most people, most neurotypical people, tend to talk, they tend to be more subtle in their communications. People tend to say things they don't mean, or say things expecting a specific response that autistic people just do not understand. But just the normal flow of conversation can be very, very difficult, which is why some autistic people will talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. Others may interrupt because they don't understand where the break is supposed to be and when it's supposed to be their turn to talk, or you end up with the awkward silences. Happens to me a lot where I hear the person pause in their speech, so I know that it's my turn to speak, but with what they said doesn't seem to have any particular response that I can think of. So what do I say? So again, part of my masking is, I'll usually crack some kind of joke or make some comment about something around us or something, just to keep conversation going. But typically, especially when people are telling, because again, I work with the public, when people are telling me their problems or issues or some strange thing that happened, and they pause, it's my turn to speak, I have no idea what to say. So a lot of times it's just, man, that really sucks. I hear you, that sucks, and then try and move on to something else, because I don't know what to say. Telephonically, it's even tougher because you also don't have body language. Now, autistic people already have difficulty with facial expressions and body language. A lot of difficulty, but there's still a little bit there. But when you're going over the phone, you have none of that. So being able to sense and read those breaks in conversation, again, are very, very difficult. So it's another sign of autism. Now, modern times have actually helped adults with autistic adults greatly when it comes to that, because we now have instant back and forth real-time communication that is not dependent upon voice, is not dependent upon face-to-face, and has very, very clear and obvious breaks in the conversation where it's the other person's turn to speak. That is text messaging and instant messaging and SMS and Facebook messengers, all of that stuff. They're a great tool for autistic adults, a phenomenal tool. Another one that is also very, very, very subtle at times, can also present very obviously, but I'm going to go with the subtle stuff, is stimming. If you or someone that has made it to adulthood, especially further into adulthood, maybe late 20s, 30s, 40s, and is suspecting they may be autistic, then if you stim, it is likely one of the very, very subtle ones. When you see it in small children, toddlers, the stimming can be a lot more obvious, the flapping, the rocking, and some adults will still do the rocking unconsciously while they're really, really focused on something. But stimming can present in dozens and dozens and dozens of different ways, from the obvious things of flapping to rocking to bouncing your leg to tapping on a table, spinning a pencil, biting your fingernails, grinding your teeth. It doesn't mean you grind your teeth while you're sleeping. That's stimming. That's a whole different issue, which is also an issue I actually happen to have. Grinding your teeth at other times while you're concentrating, while you're excited or angry or any strong emotion or any point of confusion, pretty much any time the brain is having trouble processing something, or start biting your fingernails, again, tapping the table, bouncing your leg, spinning a pencil, tapping a pencil. There's dozens and dozens of potential stims or stimming that can be done. The last one is very, very typical. The last one I'm going to talk about is very, very typical, or very difficult to define, and that is small social cues. Again, many autistic people have enormous difficulties with facial expressions, body language, and verbal cues as well. Because again, most people talk in circles in a way. It's tough for me to articulate, but autistic people have a lot of difficulty understanding why people say the things they say, or why they ask questions they ask. People will ask questions that they do not want honest answers to. In fact, most questions that neurotypical people ask, they do not want an honest answer to. They want the answer that is understood and the expected answer, and there you go. For instance, and I'm not going to use an adult as an example, I'll use a child as an example, but if you have an autistic child, but one that's fairly far along in, as far as language and stuff goes, say, the 7, 8, 9-year-old level, the old joke that you see in a lot of movies and TV shows, especially comedies and stuff like that, is the old joke of, "Do these pants make me look fat?" You would never want to ask that of a very young autistic child, because they're going to answer as truthfully as they see it, period. Whereas adults, when they hear questions like that, they damn sure know not to answer it with anything other than, "Oh, absolutely not." But that's the kind of conversation that to neurotypical people, asking questions along those lines, just like showing up late to something. "Oh, everybody, I'm sorry I'm late. Hope it's not a big deal." And the socially acceptable answer is, "Oh, no problem whatsoever." Whereas to the autistic person, it's, "Why were you late? We were ready to start 10 minutes ago. Half the meeting's already done." Like the autistic person wants to say all of that, and some may say all of that because they're unable, because they don't understand that there's a different socially acceptable thing that's supposed to have been said. And that applies to so many aspects of conversation, not just questions, but all kinds of small social cues. To autistic people, they just don't understand it. They don't understand it because it doesn't make sense. And if you really think about it, a lot of things that we do as a society, especially a lot of the social things we do, really doesn't make sense. It's just what we do. And it's just accepted or expected. Whereas to the autistic person, it just flat doesn't make sense, and their brain is just not going to wrap around it. So there you guys go. That's a few of the signs of autism that you may see, especially as an adult. If you're wondering if possibly you may be on the spectrum, maybe not. That's a few of the signs. Now, again, try not to get autism and ADHD confused. We're going to have some other videos talking about that. But there you go. That's a few of the dozens to hundreds of possible signs and symptoms of autism in adults. Again, it's very, very, very difficult to spot if they have not already been diagnosed, because they've learned to mask. That's why they say a lot of autistic children, that the symptoms smooth out or drop off as they approach adulthood and go deeper into adulthood, to where they may not present as autistic at all anymore. It'd be very difficult to diagnose them or even notice. The reason for that is, again, masking, faking it. They learn how. You have no choice, really. So there you guys go. Hope you find this interesting and helpful, possibly. And again, this is not the be-all, end-all. It's not this is not the total list. And again, these things do not automatically mean that somebody is autistic either. So there you go. Thank you for watching, everybody. Please hit the like and subscribe button, so we'll catch you next time. Bye now.